I watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient, waiting for some secret, silent alarm to trigger him off. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic.
My name is Jonathan.
And welcome back to another episode of The End Credits, the podcast where the two of us discuss our thoughts on a film of our choosing. And today, we are talking about the grandfather of the slasher film, the best of the best, the film that got me into films, the best Halloween movie in the franchise, the first and original John Carpenter's Halloween.
So Halloween was directed by John Carpenter with a release date of October 25th, 1978. It had a running time of 1 hour and 42 minutes, and the genre is a slasher. It stars Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, PJ Soles, and Nancy Loomis. The summary for this film, as given by Google: on a cold Halloween night in 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally murdered his 17-year-old sister Judith. He was sentenced and locked away for 15 years. But on October 30th, 1978, while being transferred from a court date, 21-year-old Michael Myers steals a car and escapes Smith's Grove. He returns to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, where he is looking for his next victims.
You just described the best movie of all time.
This is your movie right here.
This is my movie. I got chills just you reading that description. Man, yeah, so much to talk about with this movie. So much history with this one. And I'm really happy that we're finishing off our Horror October month with Halloween. So, yeah, I mean, like, you know where I stand on this. I mean, if anyone, for anyone who knows me, they know that I'm a huge fan of this film.
Right, so you like this film as if it's like the best film of all time.
That's because it is.
But yeah, I'm actually surprised when I watched the film recently. So being like a horror film, since it's a horror film, I'm not, again, going back to like what we previously stated before, like I'm not the biggest horror fan at all, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was surprised to actually learn something about Halloween this time around when watching it, because we've watched this film every Halloween for years and years. This is the one we never miss because of you.
It's tradition.
But yeah, I was surprised to learn that there's more to it than just being just this killing machine, you know, running rampage through this small town in Illinois.
Yeah, I thought it was actually really cool when we did watch it that you were picking up on things that you could actually appreciate, because for the longest time I always felt like you didn't.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't. That's true.
So it was just really neat to see that you were actually picking up on things and you were like, oh, I actually really like this. So that was a treat to see the fact that you were actually saying something good about the film this time around. But yeah, I mean, gosh, like I said, this is probably the film that got me into films. And I remember always watching Halloween during the AMC's Fear Fest,
mm-hmm.
where they just had a bunch of horror films playing for the entire month of October. And the Halloween films were always on.
Right.
And I never missed it. I loved it. Like, basically ever since we were little, more so me than you. But man, I like always watched it, always caught it on TV, never missed it, or at least tried never to miss it. And
right, I was like, usually they played this one, 4, 5, H2O, but like never.
They played 6 as well.
They played 6 too?
Yeah,
okay.
I know. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Yeah, but like never 2, 3, or like anything past that.
Yeah, no, Halloween 2 and Halloween 3 literally never. Well, I actually see 3 get played a little bit more often,
Oh, really?
which is crazy.
I always remember H2O playing. If anyone was H2O,
Right.
at least, and then the first one, obviously.
Right. No, yeah, for whatever reason, they only played a select few, and sometimes they just wouldn't play some other ones when they really should have, and it was really strange. But even I think before that, before I even knew about the AMC's Fear Fest, back at our old house, you know how like we had basically a section of a closet reserved for our movies that we owned,
Right.
our DVDs that we owned.
Right.
And back at the old house, it was in this like that section of the closet, and we had our section, and then we had our parents' section.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember, you know, how ours was just made up of a bunch of like, you know, Disney films and animated stuff and whatnot.
Yeah. When we were
And
younger.
it wasn't like film. We didn't analyze things back then.
Right.
Yeah, and we didn't critique. But I remember like one time. I looked through our parents' films and what they had, and I remember seeing the spine for Halloween. And I remember like one time, I'm just like, it must have been around Halloween time, or maybe I was just curious because of its title. I remember like pulling it out and like seeing the cover, and our version of the DVD has this image of Michael Myers, and like this nice, really nice sketch of him. And I was always creeped out by it.
I was gonna say, like, I was pretty scared of it when we were younger too.
Yeah, like it's just this black cover, and then it just has the sketch of him. And it was always like, it always freaked me out. And I was just like, what is this? And I remember, I don't know if I ever actually watched that DVD like right after that or just put it away. But at some point in time, I do remember like watching the film, and I couldn't even get past the opening credits. Because I was so afraid of its theme. The theme freaked me out when I was younger, and I couldn't even get past the opening credits because the opening theme was just so scary.
Yeah, I don't think I had a remembrance of the theme per se. I remember the cover, definitely that freaked me out when we were younger. I don't actually remember watching the film, I guess. If anything,
Really?
our DVD copy. I remember watching it on AMC Fear Fest, but like I don't remember actually watching our DVD copy and like actually sitting around and just watching it.
Right. Well, you know, at some point I did. I ended up coming around to liking the film and having like this huge passion for it, which I honestly don't know where it came from. It's crazy to me to think that at one point I couldn't even start the film because I was so scared of its theme. And now years later, like I watch it every Halloween.
Right.
So
It's definitely like one of our oldest Halloween films, you know, like or like, I shouldn't say Halloween film, let's just say like a horror in that horror genre.
okay.
And because I remember this one, The Shining,
Right.
and stuff like that in our closet section that we had over at our old house.
Yeah.
And so this one, just like Shining, holds like this special place for us, you know, as we were younger.
Right. Man, so many, I don't know, like so many things about the film that I just love. It's simple, yet it's unique, and everything just from like, even like with its opening credits, like even just something as simple as that pumpkin and that opening credits shot with the orange text. I always loved just like watching the opening credits and the pumpkin just coming in on us and everything, and seeing the opening titles and the theme. Like, like I know I said before I used to be scared of it, but like at one point, man, you're just like, I love it. It just like brings all the hype in this, and you're just like, oh man, I want to keep watching.
Yeah, it's a truly iconic theme that, you know, you hear and, oh, you know, it's from Halloween, you know, Michael Myers is coming, stuff like that. And
The night he came home.
right, the night he came home. So you definitely can't miss that part. I like how you said it's a very simple film starting out, and that's something that I really like about this film, where it's basically it has a direction and it sticks to it and it does it well and it doesn't like add anything to like distract it from its goal. And again, with being a budget film back then,
Right.
it's like they got a lot of mileage out of it.
Yeah, like yeah, totally. Like out of the series, and I think we could tell because it got like what 12 plus films
Yeah,
afterwards,
yeah.
something like that. Um, yeah, I completely agree. They really, yeah, they stick with this idea and they keep with it, and that idea being, Michael killing his sister one night back in 1963, and then he returns in 1978 to
Kill again.
kill again, and it's just it essentially just like keeps up with all of that, and it's simple, and it doesn't really do a ton like what you would see for modern horror films nowadays, and I like that, and I really wish the modern slasher or modern horror films would take some lessons from John
Right.
Carpenter and,
Go-
Deborah Hill. Gotta give her credit.
Right,
So-
go back to its roots somehow.
Right. Oh man, I know. So it's interesting because like the idea of Halloween just started from that simple idea of just being called the babysitter murders, and that's essentially all it was. Michael Myers, or not necessarily Michael Myers, but a serial killer just killing babysitters, and that was a whole like plot, and then it eventually ended up becoming Halloween, and it stemmed from that simple idea, and it blew up into this whole franchise. So, but yeah, so at the beginning of the film, we have that we start in 1963, and we see a young Michael, and he's essentially just we're seeing it from his perspective, and it's probably the only time when we're actually in Michael's perspective for the entire film.
Right.
And he's watching his sister in a very like creepy way, and you can already tell by the way he just walks around the house and he's peering into the window, and his sister's with her boyfriend, and I mean looks like until the end of the scene we find out that like Michael's in his costume, but it looks like he was ready to go trick-or-treating, just wants to go trick-or-treating, but his sister's too busy with her boyfriend, and makes his way into the house and whatnot, and ends up murdering his sister.
I actually found what I thought was interesting in this scene was the fact that it might seem weird thinking nowadays, but like the fact that I believe he started outside. Am I correct? Like he starts outside, watching from outside the window. I'd always thought, why would this kid just be outside in the middle of the night? I guess maybe he went outside because, like you said, he wanted to go trick or treating.
Probably.
Like the fact that we start outside, it shows that like we didn't know it was a child to begin with until like the very end.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just someone it's creepily looking in and gonna do something, right?
That's the shocker of it,
right? And that's why I was like, wow, why do we start outside? And it makes more sense as you go further along that it added to that effect. And it was a good setup scene, like with this camera falling around, just with swift movements inside.
Yeah, the camera work is definitely something that can't go unnoticed.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Like really smooth camera work, and really nice cuts in the scene too. Like it's almost hard to tell where the cuts lie in the entire scene, which is really nice. And yeah, essentially just like going around the house and everything, and going through, and then up the stairs, and eventually the murder. But the camera work is it's excellent. I agree.
Especially like I always thought it was a little strange, a little funny that at the end of the scene, they zoom out for the longest time. I think the zoom out's fine, but maybe because they just stood there.
The parents just stood there and froze.
For quite a while. It's like, please move or something like that,
Yeah.
It's supposed to add to this drama, obviously.
Right.
But like just looking at it as a viewer's perspective, it's a I always thought it was a little silly, you know?
Right. No, I totally get you. It's always kind of weird because they're just like, oh, Michael, and they just stare, and then that's it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Like, what did you do? Where'd you get this knife? You know,
Right.
no questions. It's
Man,
just,
that knife is huge too.
I know, right?
Oh my god, oh man, it's huge.
like, who has those types of knives in their house? I mean, well, you know, maybe like a professional cook or, you know, someone who really likes cooking. Okay.
Yeah, well, Michael obviously did not use it for that reason.
Right.
But then we move into the next scene, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, even this was a really great setup scene when we move into Smith's Grove. Uh, I love that this scene with both the nurse and Dr. Loomis. Love that scene where they're just talking to each other and then going to they're getting to the to Smith's Grove.
Right.
And you know, they're kind of talking through about like what they're going to be doing with Michael because they're going to be transferring him to a court date,
Mhm.
and just talking about, you know, what they're going to give him and how they're going to do it and whatnot. And it's very subtle. Not a lot's going on here.
Mhm.
And then it gets a little it gets a little suspicious and weird when they notice that the patients are outside and they're gathering around the asylum.
Here's another thing that I always thought was very weird in that scene where they show the patients outside. It's raining, wet and cold, and the patients are just outside. It's like, oh man,
Getting drenched.
yeah, and it's like it's pitch black at night too.
Right. Yeah.
So like
they're not going to care.
Why are they out there?
I don't think they'd care. I think that. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, but like, you know, we got to just like let it happen for the film.
I know.
And you know, and then Michael ends up stealing the car and whatnot. And really cool, like this is where we introduce some really neat sound effects.
Oh yeah, when he jumps out.
Yeah, like when he jumps out and above the car. I like still to this day, I do not know what those sound effects are.
Right. I try to think with you and like what it could be, but yeah, I couldn't actually pinpoint what it could be.
I'm just like I don't know what the sounds are. I'm assuming it's some kind of like synthesizer, or maybe it's some kind of mixture of sounds, but I really don't know. But whatever it is, it's effective and it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he ends up stealing the car and whatnot, and we get that. I think this is the first time when we, besides the opening credits, where we get that first playthrough of the Halloween theme.
I've always thought that he killed the nurse inside the car.
Oh, during that scene?
Yeah, just because of the whole glass shattering. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I always thought that she got harmed or something like that, but she actually like just escaped from her vehicle. And
Right, she got away.
Yeah, she got away.
Right. And then, you know, and then to their surprise, Michael was driving and he escaped Smith's Grove.
Mm-hmm.
And then we return to Haddonfield, but it's now, you know, it's now 78. Well, it already was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And we are introduced to our protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously. Right. And you know, it's very normal, and that's what I really like about this. For Halloween, the pacing, I think for nowadays, people are going to consider it slow. It's definitely slow.
I consider it slow.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, it is a slow film, but I personally enjoy when a film takes its time to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just nowadays it's not as normal for a horror film, especially, to take its time.
Probably like a slasher film to take its time, where it
Right.
just kill after kill after kill after kill.
And yeah, exactly. And I like how, you know, we're introduced to Laurie Strode, and then, you know, we're just following like the story, and just something as simple as like the father coming out and telling her, you know, to stop by the Myers house to leave the key because someone wants to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she walks off and whatnot. And like, and you even mentioned too, like, as you know, she's walking down and going to the house, we're soon introduced to Tommy Doyle.
Right. I really liked how he was introduced in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a clear like line movement. You could see this clearly when he was coming in. This like symmetry that he just comes down the sidewalk and it's very I guess
Linear.
pleasing. Yeah, linear and very pleasing to the eye that he just comes down in this straight shot, and it's a nice way to introduce this character.
Yeah, and then we like get a little bit more of their relationship and whatnot, and we find out that she's going to be babysitting him later
In the night, I
in the
believe.
night because it's Halloween, right? When we're
Yeah,
introduced,
because
I
he
believe so.
escapes on the 30th, and it's Halloween.
Right, it's
that day.
Halloween. So then they're just talking through what they're gonna do for like tonight
Mhm.
and everything, and then they end up stopping at Michael's at the Myers house, and Tommy notices that, and she tells her like not to go up there or whatnot. Which I always thought was like funny because she ends up just going straight up there and saying I have to, like, what's wrong with it?
Right.
And I know that the other films reference Michael as the boogeyman in other films, but I really love how this one, he's really known as just the boogeyman.
hmm
Michael Myers is known as the boogeyman in this entire film because that's how Tommy refers to him as. And I love when he says just like, you can't go up there. That's the boogeyman's house. You don't go up there. And she does, and oh man, we get like probably we get our first jump scare, and Michael like appears, or presumably what is
Right, 'cause
who is Michael?
All we see is like a shoulder shot, I believe.
Yeah,
I think we heard this when we watched, because we watched the commentary version before,
right.
and obviously the film many times. But I believe they brought it up in the commentary where basically this house was like the idea that every small town place has like a
It's like old rundown house.
old rundown house that's like presumably haunted or some scary thing that people go to and like make up some stories.
Right, it's like an attraction almost.
Right, and like you don't go there or else some monster's gonna get you.
Yeah,
And that place is like the perfect movie version of that, and that people can actually like relate to.
hmm yeah, and even more like about the house. Like what's interesting is that we are like we're originally introduced to the house in '63 as it being like this really nice looking house, and then in '78 it's all run down, and it's really interesting. Like because it even mentioned in the audio commentary how at the time when they were shooting, the house was run down, and they actually fixed it up
Which
just
is
for that
crazy.
scene.
That's
Yeah, just for the
crazy.
opening scene. And
Because it looks pristine new, I think, in
Right.
the opening scene.
yeah, so they did a really good job at rebuilding it, and then they had to tear it down like afterwards.
Yeah, that's some good set design.
Yeah. But yeah, then like we get like our first few glimpses of Michael very early on in the film. And it's a lot of like, over the shoulder shots. And it's just kind of like freaky, especially like after she leaves the Myers house and she's walking down the sidewalk, he comes out and we just see this over the shoulder shot.
I'm pretty sure we're going to say this over and over again, but I guess, beauty of this film is that they really live by the motto of like less is more.
Oh yeah.
And like they never show him basically throughout this movie, like maybe minuscule times, but that less is more is like, this unknown entity that we're never really going to know much about in this film. That's the scare factor for the entire story.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's essentially just roaming around and no one ever notices him. And that's the beauty of it in a weird, twisted way. And yeah, I think right after we get into, I think we're back at Loomis.
Yeah, we get some like backstory with like he's talking to the authorities, like, prepare or watch out, or where can he be? He's trying to track him down.
Right.
And we get this shot of like they're following them down this walkway.
Right.
And even that is very, you don't notice it when you're watching it.
Yeah, totally.
But even then, that's a full long no cuts, and it's just amazing that the actors had to go through that and not mess up just to do the entire scene. Because most films nowadays would have just had to cut somewhere.
Right.
And there's few little cuts in those motion scenes.
It's so smooth. And like for a while, I almost didn't even notice those shots because, like you said, you don't pick up on those things as you're like first watching it, or maybe you're even after several viewings, because it does feel so natural and the movement's so right. And then he just gets in his car and drives off.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we find out where Michael actually supposedly can't drive. He never learned how to, but he was doing very well the night before,
Right.
because he escaped.
Doing better than most first drivers.
Yeah, I know. he was able to make it at Haddonfield somehow. And let's see, afterwards, I think we are introduced to the girls, correct?
Is it the girls? I thought we were at the school. Is it that scene yet where they're where Lori looks out the window? I thought that was the next scene.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it is. That is. Yeah, so we see, that's such an iconic scene.
Right. That's an iconic scene.
As I was watching it through with you for the podcast, I've always wanted like this scene to happen to me. Like I know it sounds weird.
No.
Like I know it sounds weird. Like I don't want Michael Myers following me or anything like that, but like always wanted to just be able to look out the window like while you're in school and all of a sudden you see like Michael Myers just like staring at you. Like, oh man, that is so scary. And in this scene with Lori, and she's just in class and she looks out the window and she just sees Michael there. And just how creepy is that? Oh my God.
Can't say that I wanted to have that happen to me, but it's definitely a creepy moment. Like, oh, what's going on here? And obviously, it's an iconic shot. I think most people would have seen this shot or some other combination of shots throughout the whole film, but this is definitely a standout right here.
Right, and she not only looks out the window once, she looks out twice, and like he's still there. And then it gets interrupted, and she gets the teacher calls on her to answer some question, and then when she looks out after answering the question, he's not there anymore.
Right, so still, so threatening. It's very scary.
Right, and he hasn't even done a whole lot.
Right,
yet.
He just stood there.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just stood there, and it's just like it's already creepy. And that, like again, it's just that's the beauty of this film. That less is more. Like it's already creepy, and it's just like, who's this person stalking this teenage girl?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we get back to Loomis basically trying to get people to. I think he's calling some people to make sure that Michael's coming, and you better watch out for him. And I have to mention this. I always love this scene because. It's supposed to take place in Illinois, and you could clearly tell that we're not in Illinois.
It's clear as day.
Because you see some mountains in the background of this scene, and it's hilarious. And I point it out every single time because they actually filmed Halloween in Pasadena, California. So it's like, it's just like you could tell it's California.
Yeah, clear as day.
It's obvious. And, this is actually a pretty good scene. Apart from that first kill that we see in the very beginning back in 1963, we do see Michael's first kill as Loomis discovers this mechanic's truck just laying out here in the middle of nowhere. And then we get this like brief glimpse of a body like hidden behind some shrubbery. So like that would just like, I guess if we want to keep track of kill counts, there's our one for
unless you count in 78,
right.
Unless you count the
his sister back in 63. Yeah.
I believe at some point around here we have the Tommy Doyle pumpkin scene. That's another iconic scene. I feel as if, when he walks out with the pumpkin and these bullies are, trying to bully him, and eventually, he drops it and everything, and that's like always, oh man, I feel sad for him.
Yeah,
like, oh man, his pumpkin was ruined and everything like that. I was like, It's taking a loss right here, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Like, and this is also the moment where they reiterate the fact that there's some boogeyman out there, right?
Yeah.
From these bullies. And I love how like afterwards, like, when they're done teasing Tommy as they're running off, like they run into Michael, and it's such a scare because like Michael
Yeah.
just like holds him. And what's crazy is the fact that like he's out here in broad daylight and he just like stops this kid, and then he just starts following Tommy.
Like here again, like I'm surprised no adult has actually seen Michael just wandering about. Like it's only
Right.
usually people under the age of 18 that actually see Michael in some capacity, and it's kind of like crazy.
Right. Yeah, like a lot of it's always the younger kids who are, who actually notice him. Or like in a lot of ways, just Tommy.
Right,
Just
right.
Tommy, really, as we get further into the film.
We have this like walking scene with Michael as he watches Tommy
It's
leave.
so good. It's so good. This, like, as he's going through the gate, like the best part about this is the slight little touch that he puts his hand on the gate for just a slight minute, and then he just like walking and he's following Tommy's pace, and he's just walking ever so slowly, and then we cut away, and then he gets into his car, and then he starts following him in his car.
I like this scene, but I think I've told you many times that the biggest thing I don't like about this scene is the fact that it cuts
To the car.
to the car. I think it's just a weird motion because basically once the cut happens, it stops and we see another cut to him entering the car, and then it
Right.
goes back to the same painting shot that we see to follow Tommy.
Yeah.
And it's just so it breaks the smoothness of it. And that's why I don't like it. And then plus when he gets real close, how doesn't he feel the car presence?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're gonna feel that, no doubt. You're totally right. But again, like it's just like I'm pretty sure I don't dislike anything about this film. So basically, it's
Whoa.
like I really love this car scene for me. But I do agree with you is that Tommy should have totally noticed the fact that some car was like just right there by his side because Michael wasn't being
Very stealthy at all.
no, not really. He was just out there in the open, which is like again weird and freaky. So this is the moment where we are introduced to Lori and her friends,
Right.
and that being Linda and Annie. And I always really loved this dynamic. I always loved watching their scenes, and a lot of credit goes to Deborah Hill because I know that she was the one who wrote a lot of the dialogue for their scenes, and I think it just feels natural.
Yeah, it definitely does feel any interaction with them, like you said, feels very natural.
And because it's just them having a conversation and talking about like what they're going to be doing tonight. Yeah, like I don't know, like you're just kind of like watching them. And again with this scene too, camera work is so well done. Like we're just following them in their story.
Right, it's this third person perspective that we're just following them with every turn and every when they cross the sidewalk and everything like that, and it follows them very well for the most part.
Right.
And it just turns and turns when we need to change perspective. And I guess this is the first glimpse where Michael actually comes, and they have that like that car scene where it just stops and hears it from like a mile away. It's like,
Right.
what?
Again, like it's just Michael is not hiding at all.
Right.
He's out there in plain sight. He's not even attempting to be sneaky or stealthy at any point right now, which is just very strange, like so strange.
Right, because usually like I would say that when it comes to like a slasher film is usually like at the night times we see stuff go down, and like at the day stuff the killer is usually, oh, this is off limits, I can't be out here at this time,
Right, I can't be out here.
Well, Michael's like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, he's just out here during the day just stalking these girls, and it's just like, oh, okay. Like don't hide at all or be stealthy about it in any way. He's just right there, just out there.
Right, and he doesn't come back until basically a bit later in their trip, where they reach a bush, and
Oh, right.
I believe it's Lori and
It's Annie.
Annie going down, and
Yep.
they just see this figure. Oh, I think only Lori sees the figure first.
Lori only sees him, yeah.
And
oh, yeah, that's actually a good point to bring up, the fact that Lori actually does see him throughout the day and no one else does. And then, but she never sees him hardly, like she never sees him at night
right
until, obviously the end.
obviously the end. It's only Tommy and Lori that actually see him, I think, for the most part.
Right, and Loomis, of course.
Yeah, and Loomis, of course.
But I do like in this whole early morning, like, or not early morning, but like throughout the day stalking with Michael, it does establish the fact that Lori is the responsible one of the group,
Right.
among her friends, and that like telling Annie that like you're gonna get us all into deep trouble, and then like she sees Michael at the hedge later, and she tells like Annie that like, oh, look, that's the guy you yelled at earlier. And, like, oh, he doesn't, like, he's just like, looking at us. And then even Annie was like, brought up the fact that like, oh, subtle, isn't he? Like, he's literally not like, not even being subtle.
Right? I always thought that, how sometimes he's hiding behind the hedge, and then he just disappears after the fact. It's like, what did he do? Did he just bolt in the other direction?
Yeah, he just sprinted because it's a pretty long hedge.
I was gonna say, it's like, I'm shocked I didn't see like a glimpse of his pant leg, crossing the street or something like that.
Right, because even Annie ran off to go and like look across the hedge or behind the hedge, and he wasn't there. So
I was like, oh man, he must be
Michael's fast
training in his marathon.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, then then Annie kind of plays this joke on Lori that like, oh, like he wants to talk to you and everything, and like Lori's curious, and she goes there, then there's no one there. And Annie's just like, scaring another one away.
Mm-hmm.
And it does play into this, like, Lori's like seeing things just like what's happening right here. And, she's curious.
Yeah. And then she starts to see stuff even later. She looks out her window when she gets back home. She sees like out in the clotheslines, Michael is just standing there.
Right.
And this is a funny scene too, only because of like outside internet videos that make fun of this scene.
Yeah, right.
I always laugh at this now, but back then, it's pretty menacing just seeing someone out there. It's like, oh.
But even with this scene though, I have to say that like it feels a little strange because she's looking at him behind the clotheslines for 1 minute. And then like in the next, like we cut back to her perspective, or not her perspective, but her like a third person perspective, seeing her reaction. And then we cut back to what she was seeing, and then he's just gone.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, where did he go then?
That's silly there too. Like you said, maybe he's just real fast.
He's just real fast in the blinking of an eye. He's gone.
Yeah.
Then, we move into Annie gives her a ride. And they're riding across town to go to their respective places to babysit that night. But before that scene, I do want to mention that they stop by and see Annie's dad.
Yeah, so I think that's a good interaction right there between Annie and her dad.
Also known as Sheriff Brackett.
Right. I like the dialogue in this scene only because like they were forced to like tell more stuff about the scenario, and they didn't just like ask the question straight up. It's like we got a little context on what the relationship was, and then we got further into the story. So it's like it's a very clever way of adding character development through what each character says while also progressing the story in an effective way. And their conversation right there is it's a great example of what films can do right there.
And even more so back to the idea that less is more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like we didn't get a whole lot. We know we did get a whole lot with very little.
Exactly.
Then even like Loomis to even introduce himself to Sheriff Brackett, and like the story's already progressing forward. And even like at this point, where it feels like we're progressing pretty like quickly through the film. It's weird because I feel like the events of the film that lead up to the major events feel very fast. Yet it feels slow at the same time in terms of the slasher aspect, like the actual killings, the actual murders.
Actually, I think it was pretty slow starting now to like right now to this moment, because I don't think it was until the night scenes where it actually like starts.
Right.
This whole stuff is just to like get you a sense of what their reality was, and again,
And what the world is.
yeah, it's a normal town, and people are just getting comfortable. They don't really expect anything bad about to happen. And
No, it's a small town. Why would they?
Yeah, exactly. And stuff happens. What I always thought that was weird about the transition into night was the fact that I thought it was smoother than what it actually was in the movie. It was a very
Interesting.
it was a very I guess it's a harsh cut. Basically, I feel like, oh, it's
like sunset one moment
and then night the next. It's like, it's very weird. Like, you could tell like they tried to like have it as smooth as possible.
Right.
But I always felt like it just never, it wasn't enough for me. I was like, oh, whoa. It's very jarring.
I agree. It does feel a little bit jarring when we go just like from sunset. And it's very, you can tell that it's kind of like early sunset.
Yeah.
And then we go like, way into the night, like just pitch black.
Right.
But I think the one thing that makes up for the scene is that we get introduced to probably the best character of the entire Halloween franchise. And you know who I'm going to talk about.
I do.
Ben Tramer. Honestly, like full disclosure, he's actually not a major character at all. But it's just always a funny thing to bring up. Ben Tramer being just a guy that Lori likes, and she wants to go to the homecoming dance with him, and that's basically all I need to know at this point. and Annie like discovers this, and she's like, "Oh, like I didn't know you thought about things like that, Lori," and it just kind of gets into that kind of talk.
Right. He doesn't actually become relevant until the second movie.
Right.
But we're not going to spoil it here.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Ben Tramer. Oh no, I just did like major spoiler. Sorry. But yeah, we do quickly go into that, to the night, and Lori goes off and to the Doyle's house, and then Annie going off and with Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is basically where the story, or like the real true events of the film really like happen. This is where the film kind of like almost begins.
Basically, yes.
And oh man, just like really love like this setting, like this really nice like dark street. The kids in the neighborhood are like going trick or treating and everything. It's normal. It's just this small town. Nothing's gonna happen. Parents are going off to a party, I'm assuming. And then, we just have our babysitters going to babysit the kids for the night. And, but us as viewers know that Michael Myers is stalking these two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, we know, but they don't.
It's very dark in the scene, like you say. I'm surprised of how dark it is for Halloween, only because like I expect a lot of kids to be on there, like just a lot of lights with like either decorations or just people putting their lights on for people to go trick or treating.
Right.
But on the street it was very dark, and like there was the only real light was from the two houses that they went into, and that's about it. Like everyone's just like, oh, let's go to bed. It's not Halloween. It was very
well. They do have their pumpkins. They have like jack-o'-lanterns out.
I think this is probably only the case of budgetary reasons.
Right, and because they shot like in the summer, if I'm not mistaken, in Pasadena, California, so it's like it's the summer. You're not gonna be able to get people to convince them to hang up some Halloween decorations for the sake of this film,
right?
But yeah, I think it's all due to budgetary reasons. But I mean, I think a jack-o'-lantern gives enough.
It still works. It still works,
and. Yeah, then Michael's just stalking, and it's just it's freaky. He's hiding behind a tree, and it's crazy because it feels like he's right there out in the open, but yet again, no one sees him. Mm-hmm. No one's like even paying any mind or any attention because they're in this comfort zone, in this security, and they don't know that this killer is out there.
It makes sense though, because like if it is Halloween, no one's really gonna pay attention to anybody dressed up because everybody else is dressed up.
Sure.
So it's like the perfect camouflage, and that's what
Right.
makes this even more creepy.
Right.
That he's able to just shape shift, like his name implies
Right.
as the shape. But
Yeah, I like how you bring that up because in the first few films, he's referred to, even in the end credits, he's referred to as just simply the shape and or the boogeyman. But like, he's simply referred to as the shape because he's literally just like moving, and it's like almost like floating and not even like really there. He's there, but he's not there,
right.
and just in there in the shadows, and he's literally just a shape, and that's probably the best name that they could give him. And yeah, just like we're just getting really into this night scene, and we're like getting comfortable and whatnot, right? And yeah, a lot of the film takes place during the night.
Right. It's like it pretty much starts to pick up with him watching Annie, and the dog tries to help out.
Right.
But unfortunately, poor doggo takes one for the team.
Yeah.
Sad scene.
Yeah, I know. I just like,
It's funny because like when we were watching this, we were thinking back to the Alien podcast, and like we didn't really care much about the cat Jones. But for this one, I'm like, this dog, it's because it's a dog. I mean, this dog, oh man, so sad.
whoa, I cared about Jones and Alien. I cared about Jones. No, yeah. So yeah, the dog takes one for the team. Unfortunately, yeah, it's a sad moment. And I was always like curious, like as to how Michael like killed the dog, because they show him like
Yeah,
obviously like
correct.
they don't actually show him strangle the dog.
Mhm.
We don't see that, but like we see its hind legs just kind of drooping over Michael's, and it's just it's like how do they do that? And it was actually really interesting to learn that it was in slow motion, and it was shot in reverse.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And when you watch it again, you can tell.
Right. It's pretty.
It's well done though.
Yeah, well done technique. It works, and I don't think people would know otherwise what just happened, because like I definitely did not know until we looked into some of the commentary when we watched the commentary version.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, that's a really cool insight to even know that occurred there.
Right. And in around like these scenes, we're introduced to the use of the phone. Like I feel like the phone is such an important piece to this entire like story.
Mhm.
And like as I mentioned last night, it's essentially like, it's this device that connects the characters together even when they can't like really be there with each other. And in a lot of ways, it's like that's their only, even though they're only like across the street, they're so far apart, and the phone is the one thing connecting them. But it's also the evil too, I suppose. It's like the thing that Laurie's last conversations to Annie were on the phone. Laurie's last conversations to Linda were on the phone. So
Yeah,
that's like,
that's true.
like that point is just a little bit like the phone was like important, and it just signifies that anyone who's going to use a phone is going to die. No, but that's an interesting thing that I always kind of liked about this film, is the fact that since Laurie can't be there, like that's the only connection we have, and it's like
Yeah.
that's the only way to get word, outside
Information out to the other
characters.
characters, and it's a thing that most people probably just don't think of using.
Right. Yeah, then we kind of get like some more like scares with the stalking, because Annie goes out to go and wash her clothes, and then she gets stuck, and she's kind of getting freaked out or whatever, because like she's kind of like locked inside of this
I guess an outdoor shed of some sort. I don't know.
yeah, like where they have their washer and dryer. Yeah,
Weirdly enough, I guess.
suppose this is pretty common in California, or maybe in any homes like back in
Maybe. I wonder if I
late
assume
70s.
is places we don't. I don't think I've ever seen one ever. So obviously it's a thing, but I wonder
Right.
how common it is.
Right. So like, yeah, she's out there and everything. And like Michael's like right outside too,
Yeah.
of course, and that's like pretty creepy because like, oh no, like she's like locked inside, like better not leave. And that's kind of like a nice scare because she's trying to call Lindsay because the girl that she's babysitting, and but she's just kind of like lost in watching some horror films on TV, and the phone's ringing because it's Annie's boyfriend. Annie's just trying to get out of there and like get some help because she's
Right.
stuck in there. But what's like kind of interesting is that like we're focusing a lot on Annie's perspective at this point, and we do move into Lori's a little bit before that and after. Basically, she's with Tommy, and she's like reading a story to him, and then like Tommy wants her to read like these other like stories to her, and uh Tommy asks the question like, who's the boogeyman, and he wants to know more about that, and she basically says that the boogeyman doesn't exist, like, and it just kind of gets to this like scary part because it's like, well, she saw Michael earlier that day, and I wonder like in that moment of shift, she's like connecting those dots of, and apparently not, I guess, but like,
Yeah, so I don't think she ever really connects it. Um yeah, I don't think she ever really connects the dots with Michael being boogeyman or anything like that, cuz I bet she's just like, oh, it's just some weird thing, forget about it.
yeah,
It's not an actual thing to worry about. And obviously it was a thing to worry about because when we get back to Annie, she's singing her song and tries to go to her boyfriend Paul, was it?
yeah,
And she tries to get the keys for her car. It was locked. She goes back into the house and comes back out, and it just enters the car, but it's unlocked. And she's like, what happened here? And Michael gets his second victim, no, third victim, if you count the dog,
right,
of 1978.
right.
And goodbye, Annie.
I think it's so important, even like with the shots, like before she opens the door or like when she tries to open the door for the first time, it's clearly locked, and we see that shot of her trying to open the door, like right at the handle,
Mhm.
and like so then now the viewers will know that it's clearly locked. Just so she has to go and get the keys, and when she comes back, we get that same shot, but then it just opens, and it's like, oh no, like
It's very quick too, so like only if you were really paying attention you notice the change. Because
Right.
if you weren't, to like
it'll go over your head.
go over your head until she reacts and it's like, oh wait, something was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a sad moment that we lost Annie, but that happened.
Yeah, it was a good run.
It was a good run. It was a good run.
And then we have her other friend come back.
Right. So Linda and her boyfriend Bob, because they come by to see Annie. And Annie's not there, obviously, because she's dead already. Oh, before we get into that, though, we do got to mention that prior to Linda and Bob coming to the house, Tommy gets another glimpse at the boogeyman. I actually think even before that, like we even forgot to mention the fact that like he saw Michael just standing out there like at one point.
Or right before even the dog kill, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Like he even saw like Michael, and he even tried to tell Lori that the boogeyman was outside. It was during the conversation where Lori was talking with Annie about the fact that Annie told Ben Tramer about the crush that Lori had on him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Tommy sees Michael again. But then like Tommy sees him yet again after Michael has killed Annie. And oh man, I love the scene. This is probably my favorite scene of the entire film. Like I love a lot of the other following scenes, but this one in particular has really like just stuck with me for probably it's going to stick with me till the end of time. Lindsay's over at Tommy's house at this point because Annie dropped her off before she was going to go and pick up Paul. And Tommy's like, since Tommy was getting teased about, the boogeyman and everything, Tommy, for whatever reason, seems that fit to give Lindsay a scare. So as the two of them are watching their horror film, he gets up from the couch and then he goes behind the curtains and he's like, trying to lure Lindsay to the curtains, and he's just like, Lindsay, and he's like, just, bringing her over. And he's doing it a few times, and she doesn't know where the voice is coming from, which is weird because Tommy's the only one who's in the room with her.
How does she not know? He just went back there.
Right.
Was she that much paying attention to that movie? It's like, wow.
Perhaps. But and then it gets really creepy because Tommy ends up turning around slowly, and then outside, and still the music from the film that they're watching is still playing while he's seeing this. He sees Michael carrying Annie's dead body into the house. And all throughout that short little scene, we have the music from the film that they're watching, and it's mixed in with the scene that we're watching in Tommy's perspective. And it's just it's perfect, but it's so terrifying because he sees this and he's the only one who sees this, and he knows that something is wrong. Ah, man, just love how they mix the audio from that film with what we're seeing, because they didn't have to do that. The fact that they did just made it all the more creepy to me. This music that they use is just so I don't know, this otherworldly tone, and I guess that Michael Myers is this otherworldly presence, this otherworldly being.
Yeah, I don't think I picked up on that as much as you did. I just thought, I was like, oh, it's a great time for the creators just insert some other music from a previous project or something like that, because he did a thing, didn't he?
Right, but I don't know if that's what they were watching at that point.
Oh, I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong then, because I thought, I guess I didn't pay too much of attention to the music as the background to whatever happened with Michael. When I viewed it, I didn't think as highly of it as you did. And now looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's probably a neat trick to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because it could have just been underscored with some music that John Carpenter could have wrote, but and maybe it is, but the fact is that that under the way it was approached with using the music from the film that they were watching, it was just loved it. It was excellent. And yet again, Tommy's the only one who's caught a glimpse of the boogeyman in the night. And then a little bit later, Linda and Bob come over to the house after Annie has, she's dead at this point, and they're searching for Annie. They call up Lori, and they ask her where Annie is, and Lori says that she hasn't, she's a little bit suspicious at the fact that Annie hasn't come back yet to pick up Paul. But she just kind of disregards it, as she would. They oh, maybe she stopped someplace. And, still to this point, the characters don't know that something bad has happened. And, the viewers know it already. And so, yeah, with Halloween, it really establishes a lot of the stereotypes that we see with so many slasher films and horror films nowadays.
Definitely.
It's just it established so much with things the teenagers can't have sex, they can't do this.
Yeah, or else you get killed or something like that.
Or else you get killed. But Michael's watching Linda and Bob as they're making out and everything. It's just kind of again really freaky, and it's just he's just there, and it's just oh my god, please pay attention, and they're not, and and then not long after Bob
goes downstairs.
Yeah,
he also takes one for the team,
if you want to call it that. Yeah. Meets his fate.
Hey man, meets his fate with Michael. Another jump scare where he just comes out of nowhere and grabs a hold of Bob and grabs him up by the throat and basically strangles him. He does actually get a few knife shots in there too, I believe, and
just the one.
Yeah, just the one. And he again, this is probably another kind of shot you've seen. Probably either here or somewhere else before, where he's just up there on the kitchen cabinets, and he's dead.
Yeah, just hanging right there, about, I don't know, a foot in the air, perhaps, maybe. And then like I think the creepiest part is the fact that like after that kill, the shot right after like takes some time where we see Michael like almost like inspecting his kill. Like he's like, you know, tilting his neck back and forth and just like kind of looking and like almost like admiring it. And it's just creepy. But another like staple of the series of him like craning his neck like that. And we see it for like, you know, all the other films or mostly all of the other ones. And it's just like, just creepy. And the fact that Linda's like upstairs, just like, oh no.
Yeah, something bad's going to happen. And as we do learn, something does bad happen. There's another iconic shot though, once he enters the room he enters this room with this ghost.
Like with the sheet over him.
Sheet over him and with Bob's glasses.
Brilliant. See, Michael even knows how to give a scare.
Here's another like kind of goofy scene right here. I was like, why did he do this? To put all this, you know, he wasn't afraid to be like not stealthy in the daylight. Why do he have to do this stealthy thing just to get into the room? I mean,
right.
He could have just walked in and, you know, did his, what he comes here to do. But the fact that he did this is a little weird, but I mean, okay, you know, I guess you expect it in slashers nowadays to have these inserts.
Sure.
Of like just kind of weird, funny moments, but this one's again iconic, and you can't help but like give it slack because you know it's the first of its kind.
Right, but it's almost weird too that like how you mentioned, you know, they could have taken this another way. He could have just came into the room, just, you know, no sheet, no glasses or anything, pretended, you know, no need to pretend that he's Bob, and just kill Linda. But he doesn't. Yeah,
it's kind of weird. I don't know if this is like some insight into what the Michael Myers character is supposed to think or something like that. I don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah. And, you know, it's creepy. It's creepy. And it creates like this creepy scene. Goofy, but also creepy because he never responds and Linda gets kind of creeped out. Maybe like more frustrated than creeped out. But I think she does begin to kind of like think this is a little weird. It's a little strange. And then she ends up calling Lori. And, you know, again, like going back to the phone, when Lori picks up and she hears Linda die.
Yeah,
she hears her getting strangled.
She doesn't know it, but yeah, that's what happens.
And that's like the irony of it. The fact that like she thinks it's some prank. And it is not a prank.
But on Halloween, you know, you expect that sort of things to happen.
Right.
And like, again, she doesn't see it as like something's weird going on or any threats happening. Yeah, but I guess she does get a little suspicious because when Michael picks up the phone, she just hears it, just, you know, this breathing nothing noise, and starts to wonder, but like nothing really ever comes of it.
Right. Before we move further into like what happens next, we have to remember that we got to pick back up with Loomis.
Oh yeah, he's just at the Myers house at this point.
Right. Well, you know, previously he's already talking with Sheriff Brackett and told him essentially like who Michael is and what he is, and telling him that like he's a danger, he's an obvious threat, and basically tells him his whole like backstory and how he met him and everything.
Do you think it was like necessary to even give some sort of it's somewhat of a backstory to Michael, with like Loomis having some sort of connection to him? He's the only one who really knows him past 63 and what happened in the beginning. Do you think it was like a necessary thing to have someone chase him instead of just, okay, let's just get rid of this doctor character and, you know, this guy escapes? Like, what does that do to the story?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I think of is that, it obviously gives us, you know, someone who can come to the rescue because someone knows him better than what other people do.
That's true.
I think about like the ending, because if he hadn't come to the rescue, like who would have? You know, I think he really does pushes the story further in order to get people, like to warn people about the threat of Michael Myers and everything. And I think he's also this balance of good and evil, because where's the good, where's the evil, you know?
Oh, okay.
We have that balance that Michael's that evil, but Dr. Loomis is that good.
Right. He sort of builds him up as this like threat because
right.
nobody else really knows him.
Exactly.
But he's the only one who's actually scared of him.
Right.
And it adds to the fact that the audience should be scared along with Loomis because he's the only one who knows him past the 63 moment at the beginning.
And yeah, exactly. He knows what he's capable of. And, he ends up just trying to wait around Michael's house and see if he'll come back because he's been there once before. As we saw in the beginning of the film, he's there in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So he waits there. But then like we skip forward and like he's still waiting there and Michael still hasn't returned.
Right, because he's not over at the Myers house. He's over at I guess we don't know whose house that is, right? Because Annie babysits
Right.
over there,
Lindsay's house, if we had to say.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Lindsay's house.
Lindsay's
That's
house.
correct.
But yeah, and like, Loomis is just kind of like, he's getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit anxious about, where's Michael? He's not sure. He hasn't shown up. And this is actually a really funny scene too. The fact that we actually see Tommy's bullies again, Lonnie and his group of friends.
Mm.
They actually come over to the Myers house, and the friends like force Lonnie to try to go in. And then Loomis has his moment where he like plays a prank. Like everyone kind of gets their prank in this film, I think. Loomis kind of plays a little bit prank on Lonnie and like, scares the kids and basically tells him to get away.
He's so happy with himself. He smiles like, oh man, I did good here.
This is probably the one and only time we see Loomis smile out of the entire film.
I think so, because the rest of it, he's just scared and he's on alert for Michael.
Loomis is great.
Yeah, at this point, he's like, I'm on top of the world, basically.
Right. And then what's funny is the fact that like immediately after Sheriff Brackett pulls off a scare on Loomis and like grabs his shoulder and Loomis gets freaked out.
Right.
Oh man, priceless. Like his reaction and everything. But essentially like, he tells Brackett that, Michael still hasn't shown, and it continues to tell him that like, we still need to find him and whatnot. And Brackett agrees that, yeah, he's a threat and we'll help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then, going back to Lori and, what she's dealing with, she ends up at this point trying to go investigate because she's curious, suspicious.
She's curious now, so she leaves Tommy and
Lindsay.
Yeah, and Lindsay over at the house, and she goes to check it out. Sees nothing, just darkness until eventually she goes upstairs and sees on the bed the tombstone of Judith Myers,
right, and
Annie laying on the bed.
Yeah.
And then right there, then and there, she gets freaked out, goes back, and I believe it's who does she see next?
Linda.
Oh, yeah, Linda in the closet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Linda in the closet, and then I thought somebody else falls down besides
Bob does.
Oh, it's Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. He moves Bob and he goes down like swinging.
Yeah.
And she's so freaked out at this point that she tries to run away, right? Just get into the other room.
Right.
And then from out of the shadows,
the shape
appears. And here's an iconic scene there because all you see is his face appear from outside from inside the shadows, correct?
Right.
And she's just there like, oh, what I do, very saddened for her friends. And again, it's just scary. That's all you see. That's all you see from this.
It's so effective. It's such an effective shot. Like everything from like the music leading up to this point, it's so creepy. Like it's just like not like the music, and then like when he comes out from the shadows, and we get this really nice or this really dim, lights up on his face, and he appears, and then he strikes her with his knife. It's so scary. Like he just like comes out of nowhere. And she's obviously, freaked out, and she falls down the stairs and hurts her leg. And then things really start picking up, and Michael just goes after her. And this is another thing that I really love about this film and this film only, is that they really played up effectively the way that Michael chases people. And it's not like what we see in like later slasher films and even in later installments of Halloween movies, where Michael's like almost like a taking so much time to go after his prey, and he's like walking so slowly, almost like kind of like a robot. And like this Michael though, he
goes with a purpose.
With a purpose. He moves with a purpose, and he's just going. And like
this goes back to like the he's very fast, he sprinted down that hedge. He's making sure he gets us there,
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like I really love the stair shot when he's going down the stairs. Is such a little thing, but like the way he just walks down the stairs is just like it's a predator after you. And like Laurie's escaping the house and everything, and things are really picking up. And she's going through like she tries going out the front door, that doesn't work, and then she goes through the kitchen, she locks the kitchen door, and then she's trying to go out, but then there's that garden hoe that's blocking her exit.
That was also weird. Like I feel like she could have overpowered that.
Yeah, totally.
That garden hoe. I was like, what the heck? What the heck?
Yeah, it was just like kind of right there, and just like, oh come on, seriously, like of all times. And then like we get the famous scene like where Michael is like right there at the door, and he's like shaking the door handle and everything. And instead of using the door handle, he just rips through the door with his bare hands, and just unlocks the door and everything. And there he is. And this is the thing that laid the groundwork for The Shining. Like, come on, like what we see in The Shining, several years later. The famous "Here's Johnny" scene. It came from here. And
really, like him opening the door. You don't think that other people have done it before then? And they're like, okay,
perhaps it was done before then, but it's clear that there was at least some inspiration.
You think so?
At least some little bits of inspiration of this breaking through the door and then your murderer is coming through. So, and then Michael ends up coming in. Luckily, Laurie was able to escape by breaking through the glass, which is clearly some sort of like acrylic or like sugar glass, because I love how like the glass looks so different from all the other ones, and she just breaks it. But anyway, she ends up making her escape, but her leg is she's injured. And she we get the stereotypical, she falls over and like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, all horror movies have to do this, trips, the door won't open or something like that, right? And
right.
For her, she trips and the door doesn't open. And we just see this shot of Michael just ever coming closer. And here's where you get the famous Michael walk.
Yeah, oh my God. Again, never to be replicated by any other Michael Myers actor. Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers actor, just had the perfect walk and was the reason why he was casted as Michael Myers, because he had a menacing walk. And I kid you not, I know I said for the other moments of the film that, I kind of want like that Michael Myers like stalking me in the distance or whatever, but I do not want this Michael Myers. I do not want this Michael Myers walking up towards me, right? Because it is scary.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm crazy. It's crazy that apparently, he just was told, just walk, man, and he'll be fine. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, shouldn't I just like do it this way, do it that way? Like, no.
Yeah.
Just your normal walk. Yeah, that's fine.
Just walk. I love John Carpenter's instructions. Just walk.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the. This is really hard because it's like this is my second favorite scene of the film. It's almost like a really close tie with that other one I was talking about earlier. But this is a really close second, or maybe just like the perfect tie. And, we're just really wanting Laurie to get back inside the house. And, she's screaming at the top of her lungs for Tommy.
Of course, it takes forever.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's like full tension here. And Michael's just coming after her. Tommy luckily gets there right in time.
He's going ever so slowly.
I know.
And, yeah, she opens the door and eventually she gets inside, tries to get the kids away, and for some reason Michael gets in the house. He enters the house through the window somehow, but
Somehow.
we never see him. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, somehow, exactly. He's the shape and we just don't see it. He's in the shadows just lurking. He ends up getting inside the house, takes another swing at Lori. Lori's freaked out. She sticks a pin right in his neck and it's just like, oh my gosh, the tension is at all-time high. He rips the pin out and then he falls to the ground and the boogeyman's on the floor.
Yeah, we're assumed he's dead for the time being.
Presumably, yes.
And Lori goes back upstairs, tries to get the kids out. And they're like, oh, what happened? Is he dead or whatnot? And she's like, yeah, I killed him or whatnot. And I was like, well, then who's that right there? And
Yeah,
he's
right.
like, he's back.
Yeah, you can't kill the boogeyman.
Right.
And then, we're really moving into the all-time high. She's, tells the kids to lock themselves inside the closet and everything. And she does the same. She actually attempts to make it seem like she went outside and jumped, I guess.
Yeah, I assume, yeah.
And, Michael Myers is way smarter than that and clearly doesn't fall for it. Goes to the closet. Yet again, so many iconic scenes in this film. Goes over to the closet. And I love this shot where we see like his shadow like cast over the light of this closet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, so creepy. And she ends up like tying like... some sort of like ribbon or like hair tie around the closet, and then he just like tries opening the closet but he can't, and it's just like creepy because he just tries at it
so
again
forcefully and everything like that. And
like the tension is so building. He can't get it to open, so what does he do? He just breaks through the door.
That's what he always does. If it doesn't open, you break it.
Yeah, exactly. Just breaking through the door and everything. And like Lori's freaking out, trying to hide inside of the closet. And Michael just breaking through, and even like goes as far as to turn on the light. And this is like another moment where we do get a chance to see his face again, like the very few moments. And like we see his face like in pure like light here when he turns on the light and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she quickly, with her instincts, grabs like one of those wire hangers. Thank God those wire hangers still exist back in the late 70s.
Because today it's just these plastic things.
Right, she would have been done for. She ends up like taking and stabbing his eye, and Michael drops his knife, and she takes her first or her second stab at him. Right, like around his like
some pretty good shots.
His chest, and she takes a stab at him, and he gets stabbed, and he falls. And again, we're back to that calm.
He's dead, baby. He's dead, maybe.
Yeah, he's dead, maybe. And she gets out of the closet and everything, goes to the kids, drops the knife. Why would you drop the knife?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like protection. Come on.
Here's a classic case of characters doing the wrong thing at the wrong time when there's a killer around.
Exactly. And she tells the kids like, go outside and gives them warning, basically go get help. Which they do, and then finally we meet up with Loomis again because he notices the kids obviously screaming as they exit the house, and he's curious. And as the kids left and everything, Laura's just sitting there. And
why? Like, why did you stay there?
Why did she stay there? Go with them. Exactly. I completely agree.
I don't know why. It's like another case of like, let's just not make any sense.
Like, let's just not make any logical decisions.
I guess she wanted to be there for like, okay, the police come, but like, don't be near the body or anything like that. Like, at least go to the front door or something. Move away.
Right. And she doesn't. And in the background, another really great scene. Michael just sits up and turns his head over to Lori, and he's still alive. And it's just like, oh my God, he's still alive.
This guy just won't die.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like, it's like, he's still alive.
Okay.
And he gets up, she gets up, and it looks like she's about to go to the front door finally. Oh my God. She's walking like ever so slowly, but Michael's right up behind her. And she's trying to get out. Like she's just, ever so slowly walking. But then Michael gets up right behind her, starts strangling her.
And then luckily Loomis comes for the rescue. And the mask of Michael gets ripped off. And he sees him clearly, takes aim, and shoots once right there, and then eventually Michael, goes back into the room, and Loomis goes after him, shoots a couple more times, and eventually Michael Myers falls off the balcony and is presumed dead again.
Yeah. Shot him 6 times. Loomis shot him a total of 6 times.
Well, 6 times. Any man would have died, but Michael Myers is not any man.
Right, exactly. And, and then Loomis and Laurie have their little bit of exchange, and now Laurie's finally referring to him as, like, was it the boogeyman? And Loomis actually kind of like agrees with her and says, as a matter of fact, it was. And he goes over to look at Michael's body, and what do you know? He's not there.
Nope.
And we're left in the breathing of Michael and his mask, and he lives on. Like, what did you think about that whole end sequence?
I think it's fine. I think we can I guess overall, if we want to just do an overall compass of the film, I liked how it was simple to start out, and everything was less is more. But I think by the time it was the end, I think it goes back to my classic case where I'm not very fond of overpowered villains. There's literally no way to get rid of them. I understand that this is a thing for this genre, they'll come back 50 million times until they go into space,
yeah.
or whatnot. No. And I don't know. It's just not for me, I guess. I don't know. It's not very fun, I guess, but I understand for the genre. It's a thing that you just had to bear with.
Yeah, for sure.
I like how this end goes with, with his breathing and whatnot. That's a pretty good end. Just oh man, he's still around and he's still ticking or whatnot. That's a confirmation that he's still out there. But I think of the fact that this guy took, you said 6 shots?
Yeah.
Come on, what is he wearing? A bulletproof vest or something?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree that, it's one of those things in slasher films that you're obviously going to have your overpowered villain, and, you're going to have your dumb teenagers not, not being able to defend for themselves. I will say, though, I feel like for this film anyway, it's one of those films that you have to respect for what it did. And it's I think it's probably the one and only slasher film that you can actually appreciate the things that it did, and the fact that it was supposed to be a one-off, and the fact that they just kind of left the story just hanging in this way, and it wasn't too over the top. It was very simple. It was very grounded.
Right.
And I think that's something that we can both respect out of this film, that the fact that this is the one slasher film that isn't too over the top, whereas other films that were essentially copies of Halloween just really took it over the top when we were introduced to more of these types of films. And I think it's just Halloween is definitely one of those that I respect, that they kept it grounded. But they introduced so many iconic scenes and stereotypes that we see in all of the other slashers.
Right. Nothing I don't think could ever beat the first one.
Oh no.
Right here. I think it was the perfect one for the slashers genre. But every other version, like you said, copy, just didn't do as well as the first one.
Yeah, and even Halloween's sequel didn't even do as well.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, none of them can ever live up to the first one.
Right. Yeah, I think it goes without saying that I recommend this film.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying I will always recommend this film to anyone. Yeah, simply because it's just a grounded slasher film. It's just your classic slasher.
Yeah, if you're gonna watch one, it's gonna be Halloween 1 from 1978.
Right. Yeah, this there's not that much to there's not that much to like really like fix. I mean, there's not that much to say. It's one of those.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much of anything to really fix besides like, oh, I think it's very okay. The budget, they couldn't do some like either like effects, they couldn't get these locations, they couldn't get these there you might see a little bit like mess ups in like the corners and stuff like that, but
Right.
just looking at what it was with the amount they had, they basically did everything they could with what they had, and it was a great film.
Yeah, and they ended up creating a film that would inspire generations of horror slasher films for, all of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween. Thank you for listening to this episode. And this is out of all of the films, you've got to watch this one. You can't miss this. And if you've never seen it, out of any of the 12, 13 Halloween films there are now, you've got to watch this one, please. This is the one you've got to see. And with that ends our horror-themed month of October with John Carpenter's 1978 slasher film, Halloween. Thank you for listening to this episode, and like always, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The End Credits. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The End Credits Podcast, and over on Twitter at The End Credits. If you're watching the video version, make sure to subscribe to the End Credits YouTube channel. That's it. Thank you and goodbye.